Hello, all, and welcome to today's session. Survey Dog. Whoa, nope, I'm mixing up the title. Survey Data, Service Dogs, and Salesforce. We've got a great story for you today about how one of our nonprofits, Warrior Canine Connection, uses their forms to accomplish their mission. I can't wait to have Molly tell you their story and dig into the processes that support their nonprofit. But before we get there, a few moments of housekeeping. As long as I can get my slides to work for me, we're just gonna push them. Oh, forgive me, it doesn't seem like my slide deck is working. Rachel or Molly? Oh, here we go. Never mind, it's just moving slow. Thank you, bear with me. This session, the question I always get at the beginning of every webinar, is going to be recorded. So don't worry, if you need to drop early, we'll send this recording over to your inboxes sometime in the next 24 hours. Usually you'll see it tomorrow afternoon. If you have any questions for our presenters or need to communicate with me during this session, please use the Q&A box that you see on the left side of your screen. I'll be able to answer you during the presentation if you're having any issues, and then any questions you have for Molly or Rachel, we'll be able to address those in our Q&A section at the end. You'll also notice a resources section floating around the right side of your screen. Feel free to click into any of those that interest you. It should open a new tab, but I'll give you some more information about those resources before we leave today. Before we get started, I do have a quick poll that I want to put in front of the audience. Again, it seems like my slides are moving a bit slowly, so this poll should show up in just a moment. But the poll is going to ask you if you at your organization are using Salesforce. I'd love for myself and our presenters to get a sense of what systems you're working with at your organization. So when this poll shows up, if you don't mind clicking the answer that best fits your situation on your screen, that would be delightful. And I'm just not certain why these polls are moving so slow. Rachel or Molly, you're not seeing the poll live, are you?
No.
Okay, so it is indeed not just me. Here we go. All right, and it looks like most of you have already submitted, so I think our audience is able to see these polls faster than I am. Thank goodness. Thank you, audience, for being on there. We've got about 76% of you having answered. I'm going to go ahead and move to our results slide. Oh, and that popped up very easily. Great, fantastic. I'm so glad to hear most of you are using Salesforce. That's going to be the source of truth, I think, for a lot of the processes we're going to talk about today. So I just wanted to get a sense of, if you're playing with the same tools or not. This webinar is a part of a series that we here at FormAssembly are doing, and we're highlighting the use cases that our nonprofit customers use our platform for. We're calling it Doing Good with Data, and it's probably my favorite series that we've run as far as webinars. I love to see technology help small teams and larger teams as well become more efficient and handle their processes in a way that allows them to have a greater impact on their world. Today, we're specifically going to hear from Warrior Canine Connection, how they've digitized paper-based processes, how they're able to boost efficiency. And we're also going to have a conversation about data quality. And we've brought Rachel from International Working Dog Registry on to discuss the importance of data quality, not just in your CRM, making sure fields look good, but in what you do with that data as well. I hope you stick around for that portion of the conversation. It's really exciting. So speaking of our presenters, I'd love to introduce them today. I've got Molly Morelli and Rachel Goldammer of their respective organizations. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
It's great to be here.
Fantastic. I think we're going to start things off with Molly. Molly, tell us a little bit about Warrior Canine Connection and the mission of your organization.
So Warrior Canine Connection, we were founded in 2011. It feels like a long time ago and maybe not so long ago at the same time. We operate out of the Salesforce CRM. We are we have 15 program sites in 4 states. And we used FormAssembly for pretty much every area of our program. So today we're talking a lot about data collection, but I also want to, share that we use FormAssembly for applications, for releases, for internal data collection amongst employees. When I share our screen, I will show you sort of, we have about 75 forms, I believe, in FormAssembly that we use. I don't hear you.
I was muted. That's why. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you. That's a great introduction. Before we get into your demo, you pulled some numbers that kind of discuss, the impact. Giving us an idea of your. Well, I hate to say KPIs. You can tell.
Yeah.
Just the numbers that your organization tracks. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so, I grabbed this year-end numbers. I think we all in nonprofit and most businesses know that, tracking metrics is important. I think the challenge that we all have is finding a way to collect that information in an efficient way, and then being able to then do something with it. And so the reason I chose this, quick impact sheet is to just kind of give a glance at some of the information that we are collecting and what we're doing with it. And in my demo today, I can show you sort of how we're able to get some of this information with very little lift from a human being trying to collect it and analyze it.
Yes. And I think that's exactly why a lot of our audience is here. I'd love, if you don't mind, showing them an example of some of the processes that you've automated with, FormAssembly, but also with Salesforce. I'd love to hear, how you're making your organization run a little more efficiently.
Yeah. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, so as I had said, we have 72 forms. So you can see those other dog service and guide dog friends that are here know that there's a lot of forms that we collect for applications and such. So we have all of our releases in here, everything, but it all ends up going into Salesforce. So those numbers that we were just looking at, those are collected via our graduate impact survey. And in our database, we have something written on the back end that tells it to go ahead and send this impact survey to all of our working teams every 6 months. And what's so nice about it is it sends, and there is that pre-fill with these hidden fields, so that way when it comes back to us, we know, the system knows where to file it, basically. And this is something that our graduates can do on their phones. They can do it on their computers, on their tablets. And it's very short. It's about 12 questions. It looks like this when it comes to them. And again, it's very easy. We found that prior to using something like FormAssembly, we were sending PDFs where people would need to either fill in a PDF and it was kind of wonky, or actually print it out and send back to us. And the compliance with that is so low. I think at one point it was about 30%. And that was with us calling and hounding to get people to fill things out. And so with that, we built this very simple survey and did our connectors. And one thing I want to stress with FormAssembly is I am not somebody, I don't know how to write code. I don't know how to do anything super technical, but I'm able to do this. And so as you can see, it is a very simple mapping process to send back to which we use as Salesforce. And then with that, I'm able to get this dashboard that we can look at from the training department, from the breeding department, from our development department, to have this information at our fingertips, to make sure that we're looking, are we improving the lives of the individuals we're placing these dogs with? And if not, what do we need to change? So a great example that is not part of this survey, but something that we were finding is that although we were placing dogs with individuals that needed a nightmare interruption, the way we were training it with the physical cues of needing, of a nightmare, the individuals, the dogs were not continuing to alert long term. So by collecting that data, to find out that it was not as successful, we were able to change our training program to something different. And now the dogs are continuing to alert to those nightmares. So we are able to use these surveys for all areas of our program, but this is just one very simple example that we are not doing any work. Once we had that initial stuff set up, the system does it, and then we can check in and refresh this every 6 months for whatever it is we need it for. And so about a year or two ago, I was talking with the team at IWDR, and one of the things that we were talking about is really the need for longitudinal health survey data. And so with that, again, needing to get this information from people without a lot of work on their part. So I know in the past, people have done PDFs, they've done SurveyMonkey, but all of those would require a human on the other end getting that information back into a database for use. So I said, why are we not using FormAssembly? This would be a fairly easy way to do this. So working with the team, we did a very similar thing with where it has the pre-fill and sends out. And then as you can see, one of the things that was really nice is you're able to make certain questions conditional. So if somebody answers, has the dog had any ear infections, and they say yes, then it's not going. For some reason, it's not popping up, but it would then, there we go, bring up more questions. So that way it does not look so overwhelming. Whenever the individual is looking at it, they can see the 30 questions or whatever and fill it out and get that information back. The other thing that we have found with FormAssembly is being able to transfer the form in its entirety to another organization. So if another organization comes to me and says, I would really love to implement that health survey, I'm able to transfer the whole form over to them to use in their own instance without them needing to rebuild it. And having that consistency, I think, goes right into what Rachel's going to talk about.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Let me bring Rachel onto the screen as well. Thank you very much for that demonstration, Molly. Forgive me, you might still be sharing your screen. Is that correct? Molly, can you still hear me?
I can still hear you.
Okay, it looks like you're still sharing your screen. Would you mind
ending the problem?
There we go. Now I can bring everybody to the screen. Fantastic. Thank you. We've already introduced our friend Rachel. Rachel, tell us a little bit about IWDR.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. And IWDR is an online registry where dog owners can add, edit, and view electronically stored records. The biggest part of IWDR is we take raw data and turn it into information that then can be actionable. So those things that we saw on Molly's slide, like strategic planning, for example, we can take some raw data about like those health surveys, like the skin that Molly was just showing us, and turn that into an estimated breeding value, which can tell you what is the genetic component of skin allergies, and what is the likelihood that will get passed on to the next generation. And that can help organizations make better decisions about who to breed, how to breed, and especially skin allergies, because that's something that typically happens later in life. So most organizations place their dogs at around 2 years of age. So most skin allergies actually happen when the dogs are with their clients. And that can be pretty hard for a client to take on, either financially, set up the vet appointments, manage that, and can sometimes even be a career ender for a dog, because the client it's just something the client cannot manage, or it's something that the dog cannot work through. So over at IWR, we take that information from that health survey and we turn it into, like I said, something that is usable. And everything Molly just kind of showed us is what the core of what we try to teach people at IWR, that when it comes to data collection, you need to kind of keep everything. You saw Molly's nice list about volunteer hours and number of volunteers, what she was collecting in terms of what her graduates, so then they could then turn that into something different. Use electronically stored structured data. Like those beautiful dashboards Molly just showed. It's so important. And then the other thing is, when you're creating these surveys, when you're collecting your data, garbage in is garbage out. How you can set up your forms so that way it's not open-ended questions. Those are actually very hard to turn that raw data into something useful, because everybody might interpret that a different way, or you have to read through paragraphs. Doing simple drop downs with things that capture things like yes or no, having it conditional, so again, people aren't filling things out inappropriately. And then that last part of accuracy and consistency. Getting accurate data, making sure that, for example, the health surveys, putting in otitis versus dirty ear versus chronic ear, yeast in ear, all of those can mean slightly different things. And so ensuring that it's made clear exactly what question you're asking and how you want that entered is huge. And then consistency. Like the graduate surveys Molly was sending out every 6 months, the health survey, we recommend that coming out every year. Getting it consistently over time, longitudinally, helps you find trends that can then impact your planning and your programs. So if you take anything away from me today, raw data gets turned into information, and that can drive your decisions and actions, and it can definitely impact how you plan and how you can manage your programs in the future.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much, Rachel. One of the things that I find so fascinating, and it's not just our customers, but anytime I start talking to data professionals, and I consider you both, data professionals, even if, like a lot of people I think on this call, they're like, well, I work with service animals, so I'm a service animal professional. But if you are gathering volunteer data, if you are gathering information about your service animals, you are at the core, if that's driving your business forward or your organization forward, you're a data professional. And I find that no matter what type of data that our customers or the organizations we work with are like, whatever data they're touching, the problems are the same. And it comes down to almost exactly this slide, Rachel. I couldn't have said it better myself. It's so important that, one, you ask for the data that you need, and you ask for it or collect it in the format that you need it. And it can be so difficult, because it does take that forward thinking and that planning to know, what is my audience going to think when I ask this question? And what are the little gotchas of, like, are there different ear diseases that I definitely need to know the difference in, but I also need to coach my respondents through. And my favorite thing is seeing our tools kind of used to clean up that data and handle that formatting, which is, one of the things that we love to trumpet here at FormAssembly, is that, hey, we're going to help you get that clean data, because as you point out, and as your slide says, garbage in, garbage out.
Yes, it is definitely something that I think more organizations can take advantage of, is the use of technology like FormAssembly to help clean that up. And as Molly stated, it takes away a lot of volunteer time or usage. You're no longer having to interpret the results coming in, especially if it's a nice big open question of like, has your dog had any health issues in the past year, right? That's a huge question. that asking your client, your puppy raiser, whoever it is to answer, that could be overwhelming and you might not get good data back. But instead having very concise fields, very targeted, and like those conditions built in to help them put the right kind of data in is huge. And it doesn't take as much staff time as sometimes a PDF or a mailed form or a telephone thing or that kind of thing.
Yeah, Molly, you mentioned you had a 30% completion rate with one of your earlier processes. I think it was with the graduate form or the graduate process. I wanted to know from both of you, how do you get beyond making things easier for your respondents with like digital forms that they can fill out on their phone? Were there any other things that you could bring to bear to help people understand the importance of the data you're requesting and kind of like coax them into providing it? Any educational things, anything that you found helpful beyond just making things easier? Oh, Molly, I'm so sorry. I think you might be muted or...
There we go. I have found that automatic reminders, so our system, if the form that is sent is not returned within a set number of days, typically 7 days, a reminder is sent. And usually with that, then they start to feel guilty, and the reminder looks as if it's coming from an individual. It doesn't look as if it's just a form email, even though I didn't physically send it. It looks like I sent them a reminder. And so I usually will get that, I'm so sorry, I completely forgot, and they will do it. We do talk about, at graduation or during puppy raiser classes, what we're doing with this information. I firmly believe that it isn't that anybody doesn't want to do it. It's just like we're all busy. But those automatic reminders are really, really helpful.
Of course. So if I could summarize, a little bit of guilt, and yes, then a little bit of education. Okay. Well, and that makes sense. Rachel, I understand, your audience is global. Have you found any ways, your registry, relies on that longitudinal data, as we've discussed. Have you found any ways to kind of increase, I don't want to say compliance, that's the term Molly used earlier, but just like, completion rates or anything like that?
Yeah, that education is key. And also showing them, talking to our clients that use our database about how this raw data can get turned into something useful that again then is actionable. And sometimes it's also showing them that filling out, saying that the dog had an ear infection, that's not just about that individual dog, but that data goes into the entire dog's family calculations. That data can be then used globally to help make decisions. And so sometimes having that external influence, I guess you could say, so it's not just about that one dog or that one data set, it's about how that one dog or one data set can help everybody else. And I found, especially sometimes in the volunteers, when you send out volunteer like feedback, that kind of thing, they're like, oh, I don't want to look like a problem, but then showing them like, no, the overall data set can help us make better programs, help us with better education, help us with better retention or recruitment. And all of a sudden, if they're already coming to you, they already have some like altruism. And that really, I think, helps too, showing them it's not just this one thing. This goes into a lot of extra stuff that you're helping this organization with.
Yes, and one of my favorite things about talking to you and Molly is seeing from Molly's organization's perspective, which is more localized, all the way to IWDR's kind of global focus, is seeing how important data from an individual becomes when you can aggregate it, when you can start spotting those trends. And, as a dog owner, but not a service dog owner, it was really fascinating to me to see I hope this isn't too grandiose, but the kind of the data architecture that really supports these individual efforts of the people in your registry. I found that really fascinating. And of course, it's great work that both of you are doing as well. You brought up volunteers specifically, and I'd love to ask, Molly, I believe you use some forms to either track volunteers or kind of like get them enrolled in the programs. Do you find with volunteers, do you have the same, I don't want to say challenges, but are there different challenges with collecting information from volunteers than there are from the people that are participating in your programs? Do you see higher completion rates, or is there anything else that, like any intricacies with volunteers specifically?
Not so much. We utilize FormAssembly where they start by filling out an application, and that application obviously is on FormAssembly, and signing their releases, so the media releases and such. And then that is what gets sent over to Salesforce to sort of create that record. In addition, when they are signing up for shifts to volunteer, we have it set so the day after their volunteer shift, there is an email that is sent that's a pre-filled email with a link to a FormAssembly form where they will confirm their number of hours. And then that comes back to our system to, build each individual volunteer hours, and we look at those year over year. We do provide rewards and such to our volunteers for the high numbers of hours. So we're not necessarily looking too much at any kind of surveys or such for our volunteers. It's more that sort of admin type thing. And we really haven't had compliance with that at all.
Okay, fantastic. That's really cool. We had that poll at the beginning of the webinar, and most of our audience, about 80%, are using Salesforce. But I didn't ask what cloud or what features of Salesforce they use. Are you in specifically a nonprofit cloud, or are you using Salesforce's normal architecture?
We do have the nonprofit success pack, which was prior to the cloud.
Yes.
But we have custom objects for every area of our program. I mean, even our HR is run out of Salesforce. So between Salesforce and FormAssembly together, I think I calculated sort of roughly, that's about 3 full-time employees worth of work that it does for us. So I don't know that we would be able to function without it.
Oh, well, fantastic. Well, I mean, I hate to take jobs away from people, but for organizations that, have limited budgets, of course, we want to make you more efficient. But you touched on something that I really love, and I think it's been a trend I've been seeing over the last couple of years, and it really is centralizing so many activities that you wouldn't necessarily have expected a CRM to support, like HR. And using one single source of truth allows you to, one, have less technology, but then two, I think maybe more to your point, it's having one place to report on almost everything, be it volunteer hours, be it, dog behavior. I was fascinated at first, I'm not deep in the service dog industry, but the nightmare alerting specifically, being able to support on incredibly specific aspects of your organization inside of Salesforce. And of course, using their very friendly dashboards. Even I can build a Salesforce dash, and I do not have a certification with my name. So I love seeing organizations be able to simplify their tech stack and make their data work a little bit better for them. I don't see a ton of questions. I do want to open things up to our audience members. I know a lot of you are in the service dog community, just judging by your organization names. If you have any questions for Molly or Rachel, I encourage you to go ahead and throw them in the Q&A box. We'll get them answered. I have one from Dana here that's specific to FormAssembly. And Dana asked, do you have to pay for FormAssembly to be part of your Salesforce database? I'll handle that, Dana. Yes, FormAssembly is a separate product. We do consider ourselves, very close to the Salesforce ecosystem. It's definitely our most popular integration. We think that we do Salesforce integration better than a lot of other softwares, but we are a separate product. In the Resources Center, I do have a free trial if you'd like to get a sense of what FormAssembly can do, and that'll expose you to our Salesforce integration as well. But there is a cost, and you can see that on our pricing page. As we wait for more questions, and I do want to give our audience a little bit of time, I wanted to ask, Rachel, you and I talked about a little bit of the future of data, and it's specifically kind of like longitudinal data and spotting data trends. With AI, and the AI's kind of been the topic of conversation in the Salesforce community, do you see that directly impacting work like you do at IWDR, or how do you see the future?
Yes, I do see that impacting the future of not only what IWDR does, for example, but also the service dog industry in general. Recently at the Assistant Dog International Conference, there was a couple speakers that were talking about advances in AI technology. One of them talking about behavior and how it can help support the data that schools are putting in, specifically with the behavior checklist. And there's a smart collar that can take in data from the dog's heart rate, respiratory rate, movement, gait, sound outside, what the humidity, what the temperature was like, and use AI to help supplement and support what that dog is actually feeling, how the dog is stressing. So typically you can only see that visually, and you need to be somewhat trained to understand what the dog behavior is doing. Well, this AI is now taking the heart rate, the respiratory rate, the movement of the dog, and help supplementing and saying like, yes, this dog really did show signs of stress, or actually the stress that where the dog was most stressed, you saw the least amount of it outwardly. And it wasn't until a minute or two afterwards that the dog outwardly was showing signs of stress. And that can really help us on how we view our relationship and how we can help support the dog through training. And additionally, there's collars now that are helping support the dog-client interaction and AI with that. AI is also helping with data gathering. Automation is becoming more and more of a thing. And then additionally, advances in technology like genomic technology, especially for IWDR, we can now go from estimated breeding values to genetically enhanced breeding values, which is taking all of the genomic research happening in the canine industry and putting that into genetic merits. So yeah, the future is big, and I do think AI will be a part of that.
Yeah, especially when you start looking at the volume of data that we could start pulling in from I'm thinking of our smartwatches, but now on a dog collar essentially is what that sounded like, but maybe even a bit beyond. But and the genetic information that could turn into 3 people's jobs just to parse that data and get it entered correctly. Or as we're seeing with things like Agentforce, either conversational models or the ability of AI to kind of auto parse data is allowing us to, keep those kind of direct integrations without putting a person in the middle of the process, as Molly was speaking about earlier. That's very interesting stuff. Molly, I believe you attended the same conference. What's your read on the future? Did you see anything coming that would impact organizations? I don't want to say at the local level, but you're more community focused. At the community level, anything coming your way that you were excited about?
Oh, goodness. I'm not sure. Nothing that I can think of. I mean, I think the stuff that Rachel touched on is sort of what I have been really excited about, with the collars and such. And so I'm hoping that we get to see more of that research happening very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Our audience responded to my request for questions earlier. I'd love to pose a couple. Tim asks, do you use your forms to solicit or open new relationships or partnerships? And he was looking for some examples.
So we have a couple of different options that may fall into that. One would be obviously our volunteers. The first thing they're doing is filling out a volunteer application, which, starts that relationship. When there are companies or organizations that would like to do have us either attend an event at their company or do a day of service, that typically starts with filling out a form. So when you say relationships and partnerships, I'm not super clear if that fits those parameters, but I would absolutely think that, if you're looking to solicit new partnerships, having that form to collect people's information would probably be a great starting point.
Yeah, agreed. And Tim, feel free to ask a follow-up there. I can definitely get your question answered if if that wasn't what you were looking for. We had a question from Cecily. She asks if you can bulk print forms easily. That might be a question about form assembly, but you mentioned digitizing paper-based processes, Molly. Do you do anything with bringing things back to paper these days?
Occasionally, so we do have a small number of our dogs that are trained by veterans in a prison. And so therefore technology, you really have no other option other than paper. So with those, we do go ahead and need to print some of our forms and manually input those. And unfortunately, right now, there's no way around. We don't get to make those rules in prison. So we are able to print the forms if needed. But in general, as a general practice, we are moving in the direction of getting everything digitized and not having paper files at all. So even those forms that are filled out at the prison come back and are manually put in, so we don't have to keep that paper.
Fantastic. And Cecily, I'm following up with you via text. Actually, FormAssembly just released a document generation feature that may serve what you're looking for. If you're looking to, take the data that you've collected through forms and turn it into printable PDFs. We just released that in the month of March. It's getting a lot of excitement. I'd encourage you, if you wanted to learn more, to reach out through I have a link to talk to the FormAssembly team in the Resources Center, and we'd be able to show you a demo of that feature. I have a lot of these questions are FormAssembly specific, and if it's okay, gang, I will follow up with you separately after this call, just so we can keep any questions kind of focused with our panel today. Cecily did asking about printing filled out forms specifically. Yes. So Cecily, I think that, what would be best there is I'd love to show you our document generation feature. If you can click the link that says talk to a FormAssembly expert, that would be, I think, your best bet showing how that works and seeing if it fits your needs for bulk printing. I did want to, speaking of resources, Rachel, you provided a couple of resources from IWDR. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yes, there are a couple of links from IWDR. Our parent company, IWDA, we really like our acronyms, is focused on education. And we have a education knowledge base. And there are 2 links to public-facing articles that talk about the importance of data, why they are a bit canine heavy, because we are supporting the canine industry. The basics of it, which talk about, good data in, good data out, garbage in, garbage out, how to start collecting about data, and how to think about your raw data, because collecting data is great. You have to do that. But if you don't have a process in place to turn that into something usable, into information, you won't be able to do action. You won't be able to identify trends, and your raw data will just kind of sit there. And that is where I think sometimes, especially when I interact with some organizations, they have a lot of great raw data. They have a CRM. They might be using Salesforce or Dynamics 360 or IWDR, but the data goes in and it doesn't really go anywhere else. And that part is where I really liked Molly's bit where she showed you her dashboard she created. Turning that raw data into something useful is paramount to be able to help start growing your program, building a program, moving a program, finding trends like night near interruption for Molly that can help support what your ultimate goals are.
Absolutely. And one thing, I think one point that you brought up is doing things with data once it's in your system. You highlighted specifically reporting, but something Molly showed us in her demo was using known data to pre-fill forms. And, one of the reasons I love that is 2 reasons. One, it makes things faster for the form respondent, the person filling out the form, and makes things easier on them. You don't know what their days, and know what their day looks like, and you never know what staring down a 30-question form can do to someone's emotions until I'm going through a mortgage process. I've dealt with some large forms recently. But on the data quality side, if you control the data and kind of like offer up what you already know about them, that helps prevent things like duplication. It helps them, kind of like changing data that they don't need to change. It's one of my favorite features of the platform, and I just love seeing people use that because, it's two birds, one stone. It's providing a better experience for your audience while also ensuring better data for yourself. And anything we can do to make data more actionable is one of our mission points here at FormAssembly. Well, fantastic. I think our Q&A has moved mostly to FormAssembly questions, and I'd love to answer those very quickly. I just want to say quickly to all the nonprofits on the call, we love working with your organizations. We do offer a nonprofit discount for those of you that have budget constraints, but most importantly, I just want to highlight the tools that Molly also demonstrated today. We offer tools that allow smaller teams without technical resources to get up and running quickly with data collection, and we care about the quality of your data. We love seeing organizations use our tools to improve data quality, improve the reporting on their data to make sure that your grants, your benefactors know the impact you're having on your community. And of course, if you are collecting donations, which we didn't really touch on today, but we also offer donation collection and payment processing tools. We consider ourselves a really flexible platform, and I think Molly showed that off very well, where you can use us to contact volunteers, you can use us to collect data internally, you can use us to collect data externally. We think we're a great tool, and I'd love to have, if you're interested in FormAssembly, I'm going to pop a quick poll if you'd love to for us to follow up with you. If you have challenges you'd like to discuss, we'd be happy to do that. While I have this poll on the screen, if you'd like me to get someone from our team to reach out to you, please go ahead and click the poll. I want to cover a couple questions that our audience asked specifically about the platform. Jack asked if FormAssembly integrates with Zoho CRM. Jack, I have a webhook connector that allows you to connect with any system with an open API. I do believe we have use cases where customers have connected to Zoho, but I'd encourage you to reach out to our team to confirm that. We also are releasing a HubSpot connector soon for those of you that are not on Salesforce. I know there was about 20% of you that weren't on that platform. Elaine, you asked, how is FormAssembly better than Google Forms? And to that, I'd have to answer, it's the complexity of what you can do with FormAssembly. Some of the features that even Molly showed, like conditional logic showing certain things on a form, depending on someone's answers, I know Google really struggles with. We're also a little bit better on the branding side. So if you need to offer forms that look like the form comes from your organization, we can help you work a little bit beyond the templates that Google offers. But I'd encourage you to try a trial of FormAssembly just to see if if you're using Google Forms currently, that'd be the best way to compare the two. Before you go, I do want to make sure that you check out that resources center. I've got 2 links from Rachel and her team. Really great resources if you're interested in data. Yes, it's a little Canine specific, but I think anyone who's interested in data can benefit from learning how to use data better. Also, if you are interested in more use cases on how to use data, if you're interested in FormAssembly at all, you're not ready to talk to a salesperson necessarily, but you're like, I think this tool might be able to help me. I have a fantastic event next week. It's our annual user conference. I've got 20 sessions that talk about data integration, that talk about form building best practices. I'd encourage you to hit that link and register for some sessions. If you like learning, it's a great opportunity for you. And of course, if you'd like to reach out to our team, don't let me, be the middleman. Feel free to go to formassembly.com or use any of the links in our resources section to reach out. I've got a couple more questions more about the platform. I'm going to go ahead and handle those offline. Before we go, I want to bring our panelists back on the screen. Rachel, Molly, thank you so much. I learned so much talking to you, both of you, prior to this webinar and then today. I really appreciate your expertise coming on the call.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It was great.
Thank you both. Fantastic. To our audience, I also want to thank you for attending. Oh, and I have one last question from Leah. They ask, will the sessions next week be recorded? They will, Leah. So go ahead and register, even if you can't make it live. We'll get those recordings back to you, as we will today's recording. Look for an email from me coming in the next 24 hours or so. Tomorrow afternoon, I should be in your inbox. Thank you all for joining again, and we'll see you at the next session.